Have you ever wondered, really thought about it? हमारा देश with over 1 billion people, how does everyone get their daily bread? हर दिन, especially जब कोई crisis आ जाए, like a sudden flood or a drought, ये पूरा system ये चलता कैसे है? Just look at this number, 224.3 million. That's the number of people in India who are considered food insecure. Matlab, for these many people, getting 2 proper meals a day isn't a guarantee. The scale of this challenge, it's just massive. So that brings us to the big question, right? इतने बड़े देश का पेट रोज कैसे भरता है? What is this system? ये system है क्या जो इतने बड़े challenge से head on deal करता है?
Alright, let's break it down. We're going to follow the journey of a single grain of wheat, anaj ka safar. First up, sabkele roti. Why is this even needed? Then we'll look at Desh ka Anaj Bank. How is all this food saved? After that, Kargar Anaj. How does it actually get delivered? And finally, we'll see how the system was smart and improved over time. Ready to dive in? Let's do it.
So, our first stop, sabke liye roti. Yahan, we'll really get into what food security actually means. Why is it such a non-negotiable fundamental thing for a country?
Okay, so when we say food security, it's not just about having a ton of grain in the country. No, it's much deeper. It has 3 super important pillars. Food has to be available, of course, but it also needs to be accessible, yani logon tak pahunchna chahiye. And maybe most importantly, it has to be affordable so people can actually buy it. You can think of these as the 3 A's of food security. First, availability. Desh mein anaj ho, whether it's grown here, imported, or from old stocks. Second, accessibility. Logon tak pahunche. It has to reach every single person no matter where they are. And third, affordability. Saste dam par mile. The price has to be low enough for even the poorest person to be able to buy it. Simple, right? But so critical. But you might be thinking, why do we need a special government system for this? You can just buy food at the market, right? Well, it turns out we absolutely do need one, and iski zarurat bahut badi hai. Just imagine, a natural calamity strikes. Ek baad aa gayi ya सूखा पड़ गया. Suddenly crops are destroyed, food becomes scarce. और market में क्या होता है? Prices skyrocket. Now who gets hit the hardest? The poorest sections of society, right? They simply can't afford the inflated prices. This system, it's a national safety net to prevent exactly that. It's there to make sure that a tragedy like the 1943 Bengal famine, where over 3 million people died of starvation, never ever happens again. Alright, let's move on to our next section, Desh ka Anaj Bank. This is where we see how the government actually builds this massive food safety net. Think of it like a national power bank, but for food.
So, how do you fill this bank? Well, the first step is something called the minimum support price, or MSP. It's basically a guarantee from the government to the farmers. Even before they sow the seeds, the government announces a price. It's like a promise. Aap fasal ugao, we will buy it at a good price. This gives farmers income security and a real incentive to produce more food for the country.
And who makes good on this promise? That's where the Food Corporation of India, or FCI, comes in. This government agency, set up way back in 1965, is the one that buys all that grain from farmers at MSP. They then store it and move it across the country. They are literally the backbone of this entire operation. Now, what's really cool is what happens to all this grain. FCI collects it and creates something called a buffer stock. And the best way to think about this is like the nation's Anajwala power bank. You don't use your power bank every day, right? But when your phone is at 1%, it's an absolute lifesaver. That's exactly what the buffer stock is for. It saves the country during a food crisis. Okay, so we have this giant national power bank of food. Great. But how does that grain get from a massive FCI warehouse to a family in a small, remote village? How does that last mile delivery actually happen? Well, that happens through a huge, sprawling network called the Public Distribution System, or PDS. And this, my friends, is arguably the most crucial part of the whole journey. So what is the PDS? At its core, it's a web of over 5 lakh ration shops, you might know them as fair price shops, spread all across the country. It's these very shops that provide subsidized food grains to families who need it the most. And this is where that affordability piece we talked about really shines. Just look at the price difference here. Wheat that costs around 25 rupees per kilo in the open market is available at the ration shop for a special issue price of just 2 rupees a kilo. And rice, just 3 rupees a kilo. That is the magic of the PDS.
So, we've seen how massive and complex this system is, but just pause for a second and think. A system this huge that reaches every corner of the country, what do you think is its single biggest challenge? Drop your guess in the comments below. We'll see how the system has tackled these very challenges.
Exactly. A system this large is going to have its fair share of problems, and the PDS certainly did. But over time, the system has evolved. It's gotten smarter. Let's take a look at how. So, if you look at the journey, before 1997, the PDS was for everyone, a universal PDS. Then in 97, it became the targeted PDS, really focusing on the poor to make sure the benefits reached those who needed them most. And then came the big one in 2013, the National Food Security Act, which actually made food a legal right for people. The old system had some major issues. We're talking about leakages and corruption. Grain meant for the poor was getting diverted to the open market. There were tons of fake ration cards. And just identifying who was truly poor, that was a huge challenge in itself.
But this is where technology became a total game changer. First, the entire system was computerized, creating a digital trail for every single transaction. Then, ration cards were linked to Aadhaar, which weeded out millions of fake cards. They installed these EOPS machines at ration shops, where your fingerprint is your ID, bringing in so much transparency. And a really big one, the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme means migrant workers can get their ration anywhere in the country. The system truly got a smart upgrade.
So here's the bottom line. We've talked about MSP, FCI, PDS, all these acronyms and systems. But what does it all mean for the common person? It means a safety net, ek suraksha kavach, a system that protects over 80 crore Indians from going hungry. So, from that one grain in a field to the roti on a plate, this entire journey is a lifeline. It's a complex chain of events, sure, but its ultimate purpose is simple: to provide stability and security for millions of families, so that no one has to go to bed hungry. The system has become smarter, more efficient for sure. But what's the next step? Is it time now to move beyond just food security, just filling stomachs, and start thinking about nutritional security for everyone? Yani, providing nutritious food. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know.